they get excited because you're pissing off their parents. Cool, I want to go to your class. I want to take your literature class because you're teaching some real stuff and it's making my parents angry because you assigned that book that has that dirty word in it. So now I'm excited, and now you're teaching real history and I'm being lied to, you're kidding, now I want to go to that class. So sometimes you can get the kids to respond precisely because of the backlash that you get from everybody else. And that sometimes can insulate you as an educator. Because if you get the kids on your side, I mean, right now there's a great story coming out of suburban Denver, and it didn't make a lot of national news, but some people are there. There's a teacher out there, a white guy, who teaches math in this school district where the black kids are a decided minority, maybe 30% of the students. There's a big achievement gap between the white kids and the black kids, and they can't quite figure out what to do about that, just like every district seems to have trouble, right? And this one, and the black males in the math classes were especially struggling. This white male teacher finally said, I'm going to try a different approach. So he got up one day and he starts putting statistics on the board. Statistics that are really the calculus of American racism. Statistics about imprisonment of black males, statistics about racial profiling, statistics about income and wealth and net worth, and showing the disparities and the inequalities. And he looked at his black male students, who were a large number of the kids in his class, and he said, I want you to look at that. And I want you to know there are people who are out to kill you. People who are out to lock you up, who see no value in you. So you better decide, are you going to blow up these statistics, or are you going to be a statistic and join them? And these young black men were told truth for the first time. You didn't have, and he had to be careful because when he puts the data up, you don't want it to be disempowering. But he said there are people who are trying to kill you, or people who at the very least don't care about you, don't have your interests at heart, aren't concerned. They're just as happy to have you be one of these numbers as they are to have you in this classroom. Now what are we going to do? And these young men, on fire now for math, have created an organization called the Brotherhood. That scares the hell out of white folks. Black people, the Brotherhood, oh my God. They're going to have black berets and leather jackets and 10-point plans and run a daycare center for children like the Panthers. We're really scared now, but they formed this group, and these young men who were getting D's and F's in math and didn't see the relevance of numbers to their life. Didn't see the relevance of the material to their life. Now they're looking at numbers in a very different way because they understand they can become one. Now they're going and they're tutoring the younger black kids, right? Getting them to, and now these kids' grades are going up to like B+, A- averages, and the district is petrified. And they're saying things like, well, we don't know about this approach. Telling kids that there's somebody out to kill them, my goodness. Telling them that the system is rigged against them, but it's working. So if we talk about we care about what works, hell, if giving out lollipops will work, give out lollipops. But if telling kids the truth about racism will get them in, because these kids sort of knew the truth in a way. It's not like they didn't know what was going on. They'd been stopped by cops before. But they needed that white man to stand up and say, I know what you're dealing with, and I'm on your side, and I'm going to have your back, and I'm going to stand there with you. And then they were like, and now they say things like, we look at him, he's just like a black guy to us, And people are like, wow, what does that mean, And he's savvy enough to know, well, no, I'm really not, because he knows he has privilege and all that. But look, he's doing something that's critical, and he's challenging those young people. And I think that if we can figure out ways to do that, just tell the truth and be honest about the way the system is structured, then we can get people interested in challenging that structure. Even people who in some ways benefit from it. If I let you know how dangerous that can be even for you, I can get young white folks to recognize that. I can go down. I've done trainings with the Defense Department. I've done trainings with the military down at Cape Canaveral. And you got returning vets that are coming back from Iraq who I'm talking about the war as being a manifestation of white supremacy and white privilege. I really believe that. I believe the hubris that sends us into militaristic adventurism is about the dominant group thinking that we can go where we want, do what we want, and it'll work. Whereas people of color, when they ask black folks about the war prior to invasion of Iraq in March of 2003, black folks were like, no, this is a really dumb idea. Because black folks understood that invaders don't bring liberation. They've been there, they've done that. Right? So the dominant group was all enthusiastic. Oh my goodness, this is going to work fine. Here we are 5 years later, it's not going so well. And thousands of people have been buried, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of families burying their kids. And I'm saying this down in front of returning vets. And I told myself, I'm not going to change my approach. I'm not going to change what I'm going to say. I'm going to say exactly that. And you know what? These folks have just been back, and some of them were going back for another tour, said, oh, not only are you right, let me tell you how right you are. And then they would tell me stories. about the attitude that they're seeing manifested in Iraq and in Afghanistan. They're talking about white privilege. They're telling me about white privilege and how dangerous it was. I had one young woman who had been in Afghanistan talking about how, man, I never realized how dangerous white privilege was for white people until I got over there in the battle zone, and all of a sudden we thought, because the enemy had been racialized, the enemy wasn't just a religious other, which was bad enough, it was also a racialized other, a brown-skinned other. And then they get over there and find out there were Chechen rebels that were coming over, right? Who also had the same particularistic view of Islam that some in Al-Qaeda had. These are Chechen. You know what Chechen rebels look like? You know what these folks that were fighting the Russians look like? They got blonde hair, blue eyes, skin as white as mine. And they're there to kill American folks too. And all of a sudden they're looking at these white folks like, oh, that might be a threat. Oh, God, no. He's about to shoot me. Right? So then they're like, white privilege led us to believe that we always knew the good guys from the bad guys, and that actually almost got us killed. So now they were open, they were telling me stuff. So see, these are people who in so many ways would have every reason to reject my analysis around the war, and some did, but most were like, you know, that actually makes some sense. And I think we can get there with teachers. I think we can get there with administrators. I think we can get there with students, especially if we can demonstrate that telling the truth actually has better outcomes. And it always does. Telling the truth encourages people to learn. If I'm lying to you, you know I'm lying to you, you don't even want to go to school. You don't want to go to school and read the same old stuff, the same old way that you were taught it all of those years, right? On the other hand, if I'm giving you some new stuff, if I'm letting you speak your truth, right? I mean, that's one of the things, although I think the movie was highly flawed, this Freedom Writer's Diary movie, I think it was really flawed. It's flawed because I found it sort of weird that this teacher would feel the need to do Diary of Anne Frank to get kids who are oppressed every day to understand oppression. But whatever. If it worked, it worked. I mean, if it worked, it worked. And her students praised her and talk about how great it was. So I guess it worked. But to me, the one good thing about the project and what she did with those students, right, was that she did, even though she did it a roundabout way, they did get around to writing their truth. They did get around to speaking their truth. And there were a lot of administrators that I'm sure were afraid to have to do that, but they did it, and they got turned on to learning in a way, because they weren't just learning, they were also teaching, right? They got to serve as educators as well as the educated. It's what Paulo Freire talked about in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, as the way that you engage people is you don't do a banking model of education, which is I'm making a deposit in the bank known as your brain, and I'm going to make a withdrawal on the test and expect you to put it on the paper. That's a banking model of education. It's utterly passive. Nobody's excited by that. Sit in rows, raise your hand, don't speak until you're spoken to, and regurgitate what I tell you. On the other hand, he was talking about a much more holistic model of education where the student is engaged as a co-educator and a co-facilitator of learning and the creation of knowledge based on their own life experience. When you talk about it that way, when you look at go back and look at what the freedom schools in Mississippi in '64 did. These were schools that were taking people that the state of Mississippi didn't want to educate at all. I mean, they didn't have schools past the 8th grade in most of Mississippi, sometimes past 3rd grade for black folks. The freedom schools were set up, you know, by SNCC and by other organizations, COFO, the Confederation Council of Federated Organizations, which was a collection of 4 different civil rights organizations. And they set up these freedom schools where they went in and they taught the basics, they taught math, and they taught, you know, English skills, grammar, all that stuff, but they also taught real history, real literature, and let people speak for themselves and talk about their life. And to me, if we do that as educators, we can transform schools. If you get 5 good teachers in the school, they're willing to do that. You get 5, not that everybody on board, you get 5 good teachers that are willing to do that, and here's what's going to happen. Those teachers are going to be the ones the students like the best. Those are going to be the ones that become teacher of the year because the students love them. Those are the ones that the students want to go to class, or the students are engaged, and the other teachers have to sit around and wonder, now, why is it that they don't like my class? And now they start doing things the way that other teacher did, or they suffer the consequence and they sort of fade into the woodwork, right? So we have to be the model that we want others to follow by setting that example and taking the consequences. We could get in trouble, but that's a consequence of creating justices. You could get in trouble. And I'd rather go ahead and get in trouble and serve as a model for those young people who can then rise up and say, wait a minute, this is something messed up about this. You know, Mr. Smith is being told he's going to be transferred to another school. No, hold on, we love this guy. You know, that actually creates citizens in that process, and that's what we're trying to do. So.
I know that you all probably have a million questions for Tim, but we have reached the end of our dialogue. I want to thank Tim for coming to Minnesota and really engaging us all. Sell those books and make some money. Take home your little Multicultural Development Center, they arranged the event, they invited Tim Wise to speak today. MCDC has great workshops and events throughout the year. We want to tell you a few of them. We want you to register.